Hello, everyone, and welcome to our EEX mentor interview with Sharu, one of our Vedic astrologers. I am so grateful to have Sharu with us today. He is going to be talking about fear, anxiety, and doubt in this time of transformation. And we just came out of a massive lunar eclipse, and he's going to be talking a little bit about the energies and how we get to utilize these energies to catapult us into the next phase. And so just to share a little bit about Sharu, I met Sharu about a year ago, I believe, and instantly just fell in love with him. And I had a session with him, and he was so spot on. And the way that he works with people is very different than most Vedic astrologers, in that he really supports you in the gestation of patterns and themes that show up in your life. And so Sharu is a seasoned Vedic astrologer, a transformational coach, and a practitioner for over 20 years. He's been guiding thousands of clients worldwide towards their fullest potential and inspiring purpose. And he uses a very unique blend of Vedic astrology and these self-inquiry techniques that I was talking about to really support and align individuals in their Dharma, helping them collapse long-held unconscious patterns and break through obstacles to fully embody their soul's vision. And, you know, what I can say about Sharu is that he's been such a rock for me over this time, and for many of our mentors. He's been very supportive, and his way is one of care and intelligence, and it leads people to their next thing so they can drop the past, right, and focus on the future. And so I'm so grateful for Sharu to be here today.
Amazing.
Heather Howley, thank you so much for being here, one of our lead integration specialists. Heather, would you like to share anything before we start to jump in? Because I know this is going to be like a really juicy call, and Sharu's got a lot prepared for us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear what Sharu has to say. And, you know, part of him being, you know, with our group of mentors in EEX, it makes it so much more powerful. And so I'm very excited to hear what you have to say, Sharu, today. And also just let everyone know that, you know, at the end of this call, we'll also have a special tool that we're going to share with you. So stay tuned, because everything that he says will definitely apply towards the tool we're going to bring at the end of the call.
Amazing.
Yeah. You want to take us away, Sharu?
Yeah. So what the themes that are going on right now, this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, this comes from my teacher, is famous in the Vedic astrology community for getting the exact birth time of America. And so for the last 30 years, he's been doing these world prediction seminars where he has the charts of all the countries of the world and gives his predictions. And so in 2016, he actually predicted the pandemic, right? And he's been talking about 2020 for over a decade as like this loss of Dharma period. And so we're looking at these major cycles. And so with Vedic astrology, we have the timing of when planets give their karma in a person's life, or in the chart of a country, or any kind of thing that takes birth in this time-space reality. It's pretty profound. And so I could show you a presentation or just a few charts so you can kind of ground the information. Let me share with you this right here. Okay, let me know if you could see it.
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's on.
Okay, you can see the whole screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is the chart of America, which we'll get into next. But what I wanted to show you is the timing of cycles. And so this is called the Vimshottari Dasha system. And it's profound. In people's birth charts, they're like, oh, mommy left me at 7. And sure enough, there's a big planetary shift that shows that mommy left at 7. So it's just profound. Thousands of readings I see over and over again. These cycles give the exact results and stories of people's lives. And so here's the cycles of America started, right, 1776. And we started in the cycle of the North Node. And so the North Node, and just to let you know what that is, in Vedic astrology, it is known as Rahu, where it's the archetype of this head without a body. And then there's also Ketu, the South Node, which is the opposite, right? The body without the head. And so the Rahu is this hungry ghost. It's ultimately never being fed. It doesn't have a stomach, so it always wants more and more, right? And so it creates this doubting, like, I don't have it yet. Like, it's actually eclipsing the sun, eclipsing the light. And so in the positive aspect of that, it's like innovation, right? We keep striving for more for that mystery. And it also is therefore like revolution, right? Where we want to usurp the status quo. And so the story goes with the Rahu in the mythology, to let you know how this is operating. He wanted the nectar of immortality so bad, but it was only being given out to the gods, and he was a demon. So he disguised himself as a god and got in line and got one drop of the nectar, and then the sun and the moon were in between him and told on him, and then he ran away, and long story short, he got his head cut off, but he got one drop of nectar. And so now he's forever getting back at the sun and the moon every 6 months with the eclipses. And so, but the Rahu is that wanting what it wants no matter what, even if it means I know I'm going to get my head cut off, so to speak. It's like, I'm just going to go for it. And it's that impulsiveness, right? And so as a country, we started off in this Rahu cycle, in the North Node cycle. And let me check in. Is this making sense to everybody so far?
100%.
Great. Cool. And so to look at, we started the country off in revolution, of course, going against the status quo, moving away from the courts of the already established gods, and created our own country, and our own system and our own rules, kind of this outcast energy. And so if you look here, 2015, right before Trump was elected, we started the next North Node cycle. And so this is the current cycle that we're in. It goes till 2033. And so you can chunk these down and get even more detailed cycles here of like sub-cycles that play a major role as well. And so 2015, there you go, it started just this beginning of wanting to reject the status quo, right? This revolutionary of getting rid of the court of the gods. It all kind of sounds familiar with the the languaging that's happening in politics right now. But if we look, the next year in March 2026, we're going to go through the North Node and the subcycle of the South Node. And so what I'm seeing is, we look at the chart of America here, and we have the North Node down here in the 8th house. If you look over there to the left, you'll see the number 8 there. This is the North Indian chart style. And the 8th is about, change, transformation, metamorphosis. It's this Scorpio archetype. And I could say more about that. But just to show you that the subcycle of the South Node is in the 2, the 2nd house, which is about money and finances. So what I'm seeing is, with this upcoming cycle here next year, from March 2026 to April 2027, is this big reset in the financial system, in our values ultimately. And I really like to describe this as, Rahu is the head, the North Node, Ketu is the tail, the South Node. And so what I'm seeing is this mythology here of the churning of the ocean of milk, where on one side we have the head, right? The gods, and the other side, the demons, the tail. And, it's very polarized. It's like one's Republican or Democrat, right? There's these two sides of the same coin, and they have to get together in order to get the nectar of immortality, right? And so they do that. They start churning the ocean of milk, but the first thing that comes out is this great poison, right? And so that's what I think will be happening this next year, is this great kind of poison comes out, but ultimately, once it's absolved, right? Once it's liberated, then comes the nectar of immortality. Then comes the Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. And so that's really what I'm seeing here with these cycles. And so we're in this Rahu phase from 2015 all the way to 2033. So it's this period of not being able to see the light as a country. This like fear of, are we okay? Everything's being eclipsed, and there's this shadow. Everything is shadow right now. But ultimately what it brings is innovation, and the North Node is all about, therefore, technology. So we're seeing also a rise of AI and technology to kind of match the growth of this like exponential curve of that fear and uncertainty and doubt. And so the good news is 2033 is what I'm seeing is this kind of the singularity point of consciousness, not the like robots take over thing singularity, but this point where we finally kind of like come to this place. And the 18 years of shadow was this necessary poison to come out, to bring out the duality, to be able to come to that more forebrain Jupiter cycle. And Jupiter in Sanskrit means guru. So it's that higher minded, higher executive functioning of the brain and higher education, all these things. So to see this, and even like knowing my teacher predicted the pandemic and seeing that, I was able to be centered and objective. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. In the midst of all that was happening. And I could see that, okay, my teacher was talking about 2020 for 10 years. This is just a cycle. This is just a phase. We're going to come out of it. And I could see when about we would come out of this pandemic. So everybody around was freaking out, but I was able to see the bigger picture and see these cycles, and to know that it was all going to be okay. Right. And so that's really the value of Vedic astrology with one's own personal chart, is you could be in one of these cycles and see like, oh, in like 1 year or however many years, there's going to be this point or this light at the end of the tunnel. And so it allows us to get the gift of the current moment, right? Instead of freaking out and going deeper into this downward spiral, we're able to see like, oh, how is this helping me? Right? What is this getting me to do? Right? And we want it to push us out of this duality and into our center. And so, yeah, I'm curious, Amy, what you think about all that. And Heather.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have so much to say. And, one of the things I want to share with everyone who's listening is that the reason that Vedic astrology is such a brilliant technology that matches with EEX is because of its illumination process, right? And its scientific process. And, Jyotish is the science of the soul, right? So it brings out all the deepest aspects. There's so much that not even in this lifetime that you get to understand, as he's talking about the North Node, your destiny line, your North Star, and the South Node, all the karmas that you bring into this lifetime that you're working with, right? And then you match that with what he's talking about around the United States and about this time period. It makes so much sense, and it gives us a opportunity to feel more grounded and centered in the ways that we're feeling. And, and just to share, I was sharing earlier before we were recording that with this eclipse energy, and we can talk a little bit maybe about the eclipse and this time period now, if you'd be into that. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, a number of people were saying how they were just feeling super unsteady and all these other things. And for myself, this eclipse was massive for me. And so much so that it felt like a reset. And everything that was very important for me yesterday, I mean, I had a number of very important opportunities, and none of it mattered because the eclipse decided to take me out, literally, you
Mhm.
know, and I've never had a blackout before, but that's something that happened. I just literally got posed, and it was like, nope, you're staying horizontal all day. And, you know, and I'm sure if we were to look in my chart, we'd find something that would say like, this was the ultimate reset for me, you know,
Yeah.
because I feel okay today. Right.
Mhm.
And so like, this is the technology, this is how we get to use Vedic astrology. So I'm going to put in the chat the link to work with Sharu if you feel called, because his methodology and his modality, and, you know, this is ancient wisdom and technology that's also backed by science, and cycles repeat themselves. And we get to learn about cycles so we don't continue to relive them the same way. We grow through them, right? And that's why this modality is so potent and important for us right now.
Mhm.
So to speak to that, we want to talk a little bit about the eclipse.
Yeah, sure. So it's just when in nature, when literally the shadows become visible.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're able to see all parts of ourselves. We're able to see the shadow that our conscious mind casts, and it reveals the unconscious things that we can't see. And so it's really disorienting, right? Because all of a sudden and especially this big one, it was one of the biggest lunar eclipses since like 2.5 years. So it was this real like reset of getting you to see all parts of yourself, and it could be scary and disorienting and lie you flat on the ground. And like for your chart, it was right on the edge of moving into, you know, your 10th house of career into the 11th house of community and income. So it was this big for you, like reset of how you offer and project yourself into the world. Right. And it's you didn't come to this opportunity at my place to speak because there was like a bigger download happening. There's like a bigger thing happening for you, you know, and it's like resetting everything and how you relate to community and your whole entire worldwide network. So that's a pretty big thing to be resetting. So does that make sense?
Yeah,
Cool.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you know, and I'm not just talking about for me. I'm just talking about for so many people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and eclipse energy. I mean, because you mentioned eclipsing multiple times in the conversation, and just to speak to that so people can really understand what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a part of you gets like hidden, right? And so, and ultimately it's this 2-week eclipse portal as well. Like it's always with 2 eclipses where it starts with a solar or lunar and then ends with the opposite. And so it's this whole 2-week period of doing really deep inner work and shadow work. It's like not a good time to start new things. And there's a lot of impulsiveness as well. And so it just brings up a lot of this uncertainty, right? Of what's going on. We can't quite see what's in front of us. Is that a tree or is it like a monster out there? Like we can't, the light is refracted. And so it's a period to go within and to see that like inner light, right? It's to find the light within the shadow ultimately. And it's the biggest opportunity to make like complete shifts in your life, complete transformation. Because you have access to all parts of yourself and you're able to see the foundations at which you're standing. So the next eclipse is going to be the solar eclipse on the 28th. And so what happens is we get the first one and then it's 2 weeks of doing this work. And then it typically like pops with even more like insight and transformation. So yeah, we have this huge opportunity, and the lunar eclipse is less impactful than the solar eclipse because the lunar eclipse represents the eclipse of the mind of the moon. And so our mind is always doing all sorts of things all the time. relative to the solar eclipse, which is the sun, which is the soul. And so getting the soul eclipsed is a much bigger impact, and typically the effects last until the next one, for like 6 months. So whatever you're feeling this lunar eclipse, just know it'll pass more, but also it's going to give you insight to whatever came up, to keep that in mind, to keep witnessing that, for it to then kind of accentuate on the solar eclipse coming up on the 28th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things you were talking about, fear, anxiety, and doubt. And one of the things I also wanting to presence is this, what I'm experiencing with clients and friends and people and community is not enough. I don't have enough. There's not enough. And this like supreme lack, you know? And so when you were talking about Rahu and Ketu and that like hungry ghost, right? That hungry stomach of like, is it going to be okay? Am I going to like, there's such a scarcity effect right now, you know? And so it's beautiful for you to say, yes, it's okay. And then in 2033, which, you know, and there's many prophecies out there that talk about this time and this whole time, but let's just say, lovingly said, to give our listeners a little bit more hope, let's just get through this next 2 years, right? I mean, we're almost through, you know, we're kind of almost through this year. It's gonna like that, right? 2026, hang on for your hats.
Yes.
You know, that's the one, you know, and 2027 will be the cleanup. And then we're in the upward trending spiral, but I would suggest, and this is my recommendation, Sharu, I'd love to hear what you are going to say, but my recommendation is to drop into deep presence with self, connect to self always first and foremost, and then connect to the field and then connect to other. And like he's saying, dropping into yourself and checking in with yourself first and foremost is the most powerful thing that you can possibly do. And within this time period, continuing to focus on the future and utilize this chaos with creativity, because there's a polar opposite to everything, right? And so if you can swing the pendulum and be creative, and even if that looks like staying home and creating an art project, or, you know, cultivate, like journaling and maybe creating articles that you're, you know, going to cultivate into a book or something that feels like it's for you. Getting through this time. So I think of Napoleon Hill and how he wrote a book that was his journal so he could get through the time of working with Dale Carnegie, that then became the #1 best-selling book for everyone. You know, and this man had no money throughout his whole entire experience, and then Think and Grow Rich became the book that everybody utilizes. Even to this day, it's one of like my Bibles.
Yeah, same. I've listened to it probably more times than any other book.
Exactly. Same. And it was literally a journal for him to keep his sanity during a time, which if you look in the cycles is similar to where we're at. So just so you guys know, this is what I'm talking about. And we want to keep future and keep yourself healthy around healthy individuals who are communicating forward thinking and throwing the dart forward. And also know this whole illusion around money and like it's energy. It is energy. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I fall into the trap. We all fall into the trap, and we need finances. That's a real thing. And we live in a very abundant world, supremely abundant world, and everybody around you is abundant. It is about your creativity and what you're willing to put out there. And so this is actually one of the most innovative times of our lifetime. You know, and that's one of the reasons why we cultivated EEX, is to hold a soul who is looking to birth something so much greater than they could ever even experience, and do it with the sacred mirror of all these different mentors, you know, and, you know, in the map that we create, typically Sharu is one of the first mentors that you get because of his supreme precision in the way that he develops and cultivates his chart. You're charting, but I want to say you're mapping. You're mapping someone's year, their lifetimes, and what the and pinpointing the pattern and the theme that is actually blocking that, not to
Mhm.
focus on that, but to integrate it, right?
Yes.
And that's the most important thing that we can do in this lifetime right now, in this incarnation. We all came here to do this work now.
Yes. Yeah. And just to add to that, like the whole point of my work over the last 20 years is pointing people back to their destiny and purpose and or Dharma. And because what you love to do the most, like what you're here for, is where you have the most focus, the most discipline, like you show up, it gives you energy, and it's where you have the most value. And so what's happening is this polarity that's happening right now, it's pushing you to stop looking at the swinging pendulum and go into the center, into yourself. And that's the only way out, is to go into this heart right here that already knows, right?
Yeah.
And the Rahu is the doubt, it's the mind, right? So it's gonna keep looping you around, giving you feedback, trying to push you back into the heart that knows, you know, into your highest offering. You know, and so no one's going to rescue you. A politician is not going to take care of it for you, no matter what side you're on. You know, it is you doing your thing is what is going to save you and save the people around you. Yeah, and that is your highest form of voting, right? And politics is to do you. And so that's what I love to do the most, is not only the timing of what's going to happen, but first giving you that view of your vision for your dream in your life. And within that, then that's the most important thing. And that's your North Star. And if you have that, then all the noise can go away. And you could just, nope, that's my thing. That's what I'm here to do. Mm-hmm. And then you have that North, compass. And then you could, like what to say no to now. You can have boundaries. You can be like, oh, that's not going to serve this highest thing. I'm going to say no to that relationship. I'm going to say no to this business deal because it does not match the thing that I'm deeply, deeply here for. Mm-hmm. So that's really the way that I.
And it's that level of alignment. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's that level of alignment that's really important right now, because there's so many, like for myself as Sharu, in his introduction, and where I was saying that he's been a rock for me, there's been so many people who want to get on this train, and it's like, real discernment and cultivating that alignment and knowing this is, so quantum emergence is my number one, and that future self, and bring that future self forward in this present moment, and knowing that that's the only thing that exists in this timeline. And for, this work, and this work, and speaking this work into existence for all, whoever is willing to say yes to it, this is my Dharma in this world. And so when all of these different bright shiny objects come in, it's very important that alignment, I'm speaking about myself, but for anybody, this is for everyone. This is for Sharu, this is for Heather, this is for everyone. Does this fit? Does this match? And does it feel good in my body? Is it receptive? Like, am I in alignment with the earth and the earth's vibration? Like, this is the thing. I want to also speak to this because, we're not selling anything. We're sharing and inviting in a revealing process. I was talking to a guy named Mikey Siegel, who is, he's created unbelievable containers of consciousness all over the world. And, and I was sharing EEX with him, and I was sharing about the fact that this is a revealing process. Nothing is missing from you. And that is the most important piece. And so with Sharu's work,
that's what I do.
all of the parts of you. And just what you're looking at. And so when you have that, like I was saying before, the sacred mirror with all the different mentors, you cannot escape that. And then you have people like myself and Heather who are lovingly supporting and guiding and creating transformative experiences for you as the integration process continues on the path. It's just unbelievable results.
To have 10 plus people, masterful, with probably over like 100 something years of experience joined together, looking at you. I mean, it's just undeniable that you're going to see yourself, what you're here for, know how to like all the things. Like, yeah, it's just so powerful. I'm almost tearing up, like how, like what an incredible offering for the world. You know, just so much going on. And really it's that the Rahu is just kind of this doubt and like kind of blocking the heart, right? And so to open our eyes and to look at trusted people, to get that feedback is really where it's at, to get off of the screens, get in person and get that feedback energy right there with the body. Or even like over here, you can feel it here, just like the eye to eye connection is so potent and necessary right now. Yeah.
Heather, did you have a question, or did you have something you wanted to add to that?
It's, as you guys have been talking, you know, I think about the way that we start our program, you know, with the ELI, and how, you know, we talked about easing the mind and then shifting into the body, and how all of us are sort of holding these mirrors for people to see themselves as they are. And the ELI that we offer in the beginning, you know, is data-driven information that they provide that literally tells a person about themselves, that then they get to see the results of that through all of the modalities that we work with and all of the mentors within EEX. You get to literally see the progress of where you started to where you're moving to, and to see that actual data, not only with the ELI, but also with some of the mentors that give actual data to say, look, this is where you've been and then how you're growing within it. And Sharu, I love what you've said about the cycles and being able to see where these shifts are actually happening with people. So there's a real understanding for them to be able to look at their own life and be like, oh, it makes sense now. Oh, now I can feel less fear, less frustration, less angst in the world because I now have this understanding. Yeah, it's an amazing tool.
Yeah, so good. And then all parts of you can be here. Right. I think that's a big thing, is we try to push away like this negative feeling. And the work that I do and a lot of the mentors do is just being with that and integrating that instead of pushing it away and creating another schism that's pushing away the thing. We just go to that view of the soul, or just like the heart, and to feel. And then from there, the parts get to integrate. We get to see, how is this helping me? How is this benefiting me? This negative feedback that I'm getting, what is it getting me to do? And it's always pushing you back into the heart, right? It's basically, at the end of it, nothing is in the way, it's on the way, right? And when you get that view, you see like, oh, they gave me this gift, and here's the hidden benefits pushed down and repressed in my unconscious. Let's bring that up. And then you can pop to that 0 point, right? Which is love. Right. And to love it. Yes. That's where it's at. Yeah. So good.
It is so good. And like, I mean, I can feel your codes through this call, you know, I mean, and it's interesting, you know, I'm a white person, but I am a shaman, right? It's my background, and it's in the wind. So I've been paying attention to the wind play into this call, as there's been certain points that have happened, and there was a lot about, you know, the wind kept blowing in certain aspects of you talking about the United States, and really paying attention to the light that we are. This is a very blessed country. We are a very blessed country. And I'm going to say this with all due respect to everybody on this call, you know, we don't even realize how blessed we are, because a lot of us haven't ever left. And once you've really seen true poverty and real hunger and scarcity, it changes your viewpoint completely of what you actually do have, you know? And so one of the things I want to presence, and then we can get on to the close, is just this level of materialism, and how, you know, this country was founded on that feeling, right? Because it was the hungry ghost. Like, how do I get more? There's a level of competition. There's a level of comparison. There's a level of all of these things. And so there's been this, I want to call it a fight and a struggle and a striving to be more, do more. And I know that we all experience this, myself included, getting out of the doing and into the flow and into the being. And the more that you drop into self and the more you know thyself, the more you can be in flow.
Yes.
And that's, I can 100% guarantee that results.
Mm-hmm.
Guarantee.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And I like this definition of Dharma or purpose. It's the rays of the sun is the Dharma of the sun, where you're just in that natural emanation of self, and to drop in, and then the shadows and everything, and use those to feed back in to see the even deeper light. Right. It's so powerful. Yeah. So yeah, you wanted to talk about the ELI for everybody. I don't think you defined it. It stands for what?
Energy Leadership Index Assessment.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's typically the first step working with EEX. And so people will take an assessment, and it gives them the data that they to see sort of where they're showing up now, and so it's all bar graphs and things of that nature to really help ease the mind. We talked about that today, how we want to get back into the heart and back into the body. And part of that is easing the minds. That way it's easier for people to do that and to go to that place. And so starting with the ELI, getting all of that data, we do a debrief with myself or with Amy Elizabeth, and we talk about the different energy levels that exist within a person, knowing that we all have all of the energy levels in us at all times, but then how you're showing up in life. And when you have stress in your life or things that aren't going well, or you're feeling that frustration, fear, et cetera, that we've been talking about on this call, when you're feeling that, jumping back into like, okay, how do you respond in those situations? And where is there opportunity to know yourself better to then be able to grow, which is what EEX does. It brings you back to that map that Amy had talked about, starting with the ELI, and then that map working with all of our mentors, moving you through the process and being in your body, easing the mind through all of this process and really knowing yourself on this timeline, typically a 6 to 12 month process with all of our mentors. I'll put the ELI link in the chat. We have a special going on right now. I think it's for the next 48 hours.
Yes.
We'll have the special going, and then the price does increase. There's also in the chat, I put, Sharu, your link to work with you directly as well. So that'll be in there for you guys. And yeah.
And it's a really great taste to get the Energy Leadership Index assessment. It's a great taste of understanding your baseline and who you are versus who you get to be in all times. And and then working with Sharu is, you've heard it all in this call. I mean, your opportunity for just really knowing thyself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's interesting, I really get into what it was like with your mom and your dad, and then their parents, and that story that passes through our ancestry really defines what we're here for and what we're here to bring forward. And so instead of pushing away the parts of ourselves, we're able to include all of us because it's in our DNA, all these stories from all these generations back. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so important to access all of that, those hidden powers that we have, that we're maybe saying, oh, daddy didn't do it the right way, or mommy didn't do it. And then we're denying that part of ourselves. So like on that level, on the deepest level of our biology, to like harness and claim our birthright, and like why we chose as a soul, why we chose these parents to come through. And it really fully informs what we're here for, like that story. So I just wanted to add that because it's just so profound. Like, I don't talk about past lives. I talk about what was happening in your parents' and grandparents' lives. And that just has so much more say in like what you're here for. And so, yeah, we'll get that assessment. And when you work with me, to just really feel this unshakable earth body and as a vessel to do this mission. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Sharu.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Heather, for being here. Again, the links are in the chat. They'll also be emailed to everyone who is watching this and everyone else who has signed up. We're super grateful for your time, your participation. And I look forward to seeing you at Energy Evolution Experience. Have a
Yay.
beautiful Saturday. Yeah.
Thanks.
Were we going to do any questions or?
Oh, we can do questions. Yeah, let's do questions.
With anybody?
Yeah.
I do have a question. So in
Thanks for sharing.
what's the other one we talked about a couple weeks ago where it pinpoints on your, like, is it when you check someone's like their chart, are you looking specifically at like time of birth too, or is it just the date? So because like I think about your parents and then your grandparents, like how do you put that down?
So it's based on the moment of your first breath. So the exact time. And I could see with that, what's going on with the astrology, and there's like an imprint that happens. And so, but then even to ask about the stories of your parents, and then to go to the chart and be like, look, here it is all written, what you just said. And that's what's profound. You're like, wait a minute. Okay, how I chose, it just gives this really deep sense of I chose this instead of like, oh, mommy did this and I wish they wouldn't have. You would be like, oh, my soul chose that to have that difficult experience. And what gifts has it given me?
Okay, beautiful. I was so curious. I was like, how do you do that? So I didn't realize it's like written already in your chart. That's like,
that's what's profound. So I like to get that story first and be like, oh, look at this. It's already there. You chose this, and it just gives so much more empowerment.
Michelle, Vedic astrology is one of those, whether the practitioner practices this or not, like you can find out so much about your celestial body because it is the science of the soul. So it's multiple lifetimes that you can see in this chart. That's what's amazing about this technology. It is literally the science of the stars in that, like Sharu just said, the moment you took your first breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the word for it in Sanskrit or India is Jyotish. Jyot means light, and Ish means personal Lord or personal divine. So it's a little snapshot of the light with the planets like obscuring that light, giving you your values and what you love the most and don't love the most, right? But we have it all within us. And so it's just a little snapshot of your personal Lord or the highest thing for you or your purpose. Like, what do you love? What's your highest jyots, your highest light? So it defines that and just maps it out perfectly. And the timing at which it happens. Like that part, it's like a really ethical delivery to be able to give that to people without, taking away their free will or whatever, or disempowering them. And I find a lot of Vedic astrologers do that. They have this thing where they want to be right. So they tell people like, oh, you're cursed and this is what's happening to you. It's like, how are you helping people? And so just to, say how great I am. I'm just kidding. No, but I don't like to do that. I like to just really deliver this future information in the most ethical, caring way for an individual, so that empowers them.
And to speak to that, it has been a cultural thing.
Yeah.
We'll say that there is like, oh, this is where it could, because in India, every child that's born gets a Vedic reading as soon as they're born. And then so this is a Vedic ring, right? This is for enhancing the moon, right? Mm-hmm. This is my sun ring, and they're on specific fingers. They touch my skin. I have them made. This is like a specific cell nucleated pearl that will enhance the moon for me because I've had depleted moon energy, which would be mother, grandmother, right? Because I was born under Ketu. Mm-hmm. Right. And so like, these are the kinds of things that like when you get really deep into this kind of technology, and I want to say this technology, what one of my mentors told me, that it takes 3 lifetimes to become a Vedic astrologer and be a really good one. It is like that. It is like, it's not an easy technology to like just learn.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've had like hundreds of lifetimes of this after my recent experience. Yeah. But to do it in a way that, yeah, like I said, is empowering and not future casting for people. And it does give you that power. You can see like, oh, you're going to have these many kids. You're going to have this relationship. And I don't answer that question. I will not. Yeah. I could, but I will not.
Yeah, and to speak to that, you know, I've had many Vedic astrologers in my life, many. And there was this one astrophysicist who was an astrophysicist and turned Vedic astrologer. And she did mine and my ex-husband. It was interesting because her viewpoint of my chart was like, basically I go through Rahu and it's like, and remember I told you, Sharu, I was like, she was like, you are screwed, you know, basically. And Sharu's like, no, like not even close. Like this is the uprising. And every other Vedic astrologer told me that too. So it's just, it's the viewpoint of where they're coming from based on, you know, whatever
their stuff. They wanted to have this ego thing that you brought up for them, and they wanted to like push you down. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, and it was based in the relationship though, right?
That's
so
true.
there's
right. All that. Yeah.
There's that whole thing. And I mean, she really scared me for a while. Like I was like, I don't know if I should leave this marriage because I might lose my legs, you know, or whatever she said.
Right.
Something like, it was just, you know, but it was really at a vulnerable point in my life where, you know, when somebody says something like that to you and you're like looking for support, you know, these are all opportunities for growth, right?
Yes, that's how to look at it. Yes. There's everything is good and bad. Everything is good and bad. Yeah.
Right. And Rahu, as Sharu said, is, you know, it's the North Node. It's the destiny line. You know, it is not bad.
Mm-hmm. It's the necessary, like if it was all one and there was no shadow, we couldn't see anything. Right. It's the necessary, something's missing that creates novelty, that makes this game fun. Right. And it gets us to reach for more and never get bored. Right. There's always more question. The nodes, the eclipses are the questions, like the mystery, right? The eclipsing energy. So, yeah.
Why we're here.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of why we're here. So why wouldn't we dig in deeper?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, really, truly, like the only business that any of us have is diving into ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, I mean, you know, that's really it. It's that simple. And the more that we dive into ourselves, the higher our vibration goes, the more that we have synchronicities, the more that all of a sudden destiny just starts showing up in our lap. And then it's like, whoa, you know, and that becomes the abundant future for us. I mean, it's really that simple. We just get really complicated with all of our stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what's great about the North Node is and I really identify with that as an archetype within myself, where it's like doubting what's out there so much that you have to look in, right? You actually question everything so much that there's only one more place to look, right? And so that's what's powerful about America being born in this cycle, right? It's like, forget the status quo of Europe and that whole structure that happened. Let's go and do our own thing. Let's create this revolution to start something new. And that's why we're so prideful as Americans. We're like, yeah, we're going to do it ourselves and be the revolution and take care of ourselves. And, you know, so,
I like the Southern accent.
I'm in Texas now.
Ourselves.
Yes. Yeehaw.
We're in Texas.
Yeah. Rashmi, did you have a question?
I did. So how should we think about, like, when you were talking about from that moment that you first take your first breath and there's kind of your path and your purpose, and then what's currently happening right now? Like, so as we think about, you know, all of these forces, or just the moment of time that you find yourself in, what's that interplay between kind of the start to where you are now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's different qualifications of karma. And so it's the Sanchita karma is like the time that you're in, right? And that's like fixed. Like you can't change that. But then you have your own Prarabdha karma, which is the cycles that are happening in your chart. And then there's the Kriya Yama karma, which is your own free will of what you can do about it now. And so to use like, okay, I'm in this Sanchita karma, this fixed karma, and how is that my soul perfectly chose that in order to do this mission? And so how is that like a feedback, right, into informing what you're here for, what your Dharma is? Like your soul chose this particular fixed karmic point to be able to do a certain thing, to have a certain experience. And so to look at like, why did I choose this experience? Why did I choose this time period? Does that make sense? Great.
It does. Yeah. Thank you. That's really cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other questions, Rashmi?
You know, I think I'm just curious to know more about that, like just in my own path. Yeah. So, you know, how do those things show up? And I think it's interesting how you keep using like, it's what we're choosing. That really resonates.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes it out of this is happening to me to this is happening for me. And that is so much more of an empowering place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can take whatever perceived difficulty and see the other side. Well, how is this helping me? What is this getting me to do? And if you know your North Star, then it just is like, oh, well, that's feedback to get me in alignment to this. And this is feedback to get me alignment into this. So yeah, that's that. Yeah.
What I love about this astrology and this type of astrology versus Western astrology too, because I think that would be a question for a lot of people of like, what's the difference, you know? And what I love about this is that it truly is this, not to say that Western astrology isn't science.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
This is just super precise. This is like the laser. And the other is sort of like, you know, and I what I say about Western astrology, and I'm probably gonna, you know, you're the astrologer, but Western astrology is very earth-based, and it's sort of day to day, versus this is like a holistic view. This is the whole thing. This is the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hard to say one is better than the other.
Yeah,
it's really like the person doing the technique. And the way I talk about it, without creating this me or us against them, is it's just picking your point of perception to recognize patterns off of. So Western uses the seasons, the equinoxes and solstices, which is a fixed point in nature, just as valid as using the sidereal zodiac, which is also off from astronomy. So Vedic people are like, no, ours is direct astronomy. It's like, no, that is also fudging the sky, you know? And so it's just sticking to like, all right, here is my map of reality, and having that agreement with the field, then you get feedback, you get information. So it's really about the reader and their connection to be able to receive that information. And so it doesn't matter what you use. Yeah, you're just a pattern seer. And so just stick to that point of perception, recognize patterns off of that, and you'll get incredible results. And so Vedic is different in that it doesn't just have 12 sun signs, it has 27 moon signs too, that are based on ancient Vedic archetypes that are still alive and worshipped today. Universal laws of nature. It's not just like the ram and, you know, the bull. It's like, you know, Yama, the lord of death and restriction, right? Magha, like the ancestors, and, you know, the Ashwini Kumaras, like the healers of the gods. And there's volumes more information of passed down lineages of these archetypes, right? That unbroken lineage of oral tradition for thousands of years. So it's just, and Vedic astrologers are rewarded through prediction for the last thousands of years. They didn't really care about personality as much, right? They're just like, when am I going to have a baby? When should I start this temple? When do I lay the first stone? And when should I do this puja? When should I do this ritual? So it's based on, the whole thing is based on timing. And it's not until and also for like getting married to see people's compatibility and such, which is like a really big use for it today as well. But yeah, it's really precise with the order and structure of the cosmos and when things are going to happen, which is pretty profound. Yeah.
And it's getting divine help and support from the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when to birth a business, when to launch a business, when to start doing social media. Like, I mean, all of these things are in the chart. They're all there.
Yeah.
And like what social media is the best for you. Like, I mean, all of this is there.
Yeah. Yep. Fun.
Yeah.
Did you
All
have a
right,
question?
guys.
You good?
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you for giving the knowledge, the everything that goes into it. Like, I mean, it's another thing I was unaware of, and very insightful, honestly. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us from Hawaii.
Aloha. Yes.
Shaka shaka.
Hmm.
I love it.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much once again. And Heather, do you wanna end us out?
I'm actually jumping on another call, so if you could, that'd be great.
Yep, that's fine.
Love you.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm just looking for it. I just got it off. You know what? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sharu. I'm really grateful. Guys, if you have any more questions, feel free to email csm@energyevolutionx.com for any other info about the program, about the experience, about our mentors. Please visit the website, energyevolutionx.com. To work with Sharu, there's a link here. We will email you a link to also the ELI will be on sale for the next 2 days. If you're interested in taking that, if you're interested in diving deeper, the two together are a great match. And we'll see you on the next mentor call. So thank you. And thank you for being here. Okay.